1968. It may seem pointless to revisit diatribes like these half a century later, but they made a powerful impact at the time and continued for decades to cast a shadow. Perkins was writing in the first issue of the most influential film magazine of the time in Britain, Movie. Truffaut's question was posed to Alfred Hitchcock in a classic interview book that has never gone out of print. Coming from a celebrated young cine-literate representative of the French New Wave, his scepticism carried weight. Pauline Kael was America's most celebrated film critic, collecting all her reviews in books which sold well in Britain, as in America, and which likewise still circulate. Of course, there were striking new films being made in Britain, but they were seen as minor compared with the best from Hollywood and Europe. Many others reinforce this view. For instance, the Francophile British critic Peter Graham, with his incisive 1963 booklet, The Abortive Renaissance, Why Are Good British Films So Bad? I must insert here at the start a form of personal signature. Any short survey like this of a big topic has to be selective, the selection being driven by the place and time that the surveyor is coming from. My own cinematic roots are in the Britain of this 1960s decade, a time of major change in two connected ways. First, it saw the definitive takeover by television as the dominant mass medium, and thus a shift in the status of cinemas. Second, it was the formative decade for film study, a fresh term for a newly intense engagement with cinema by critics, and, not long after, in academia. The seeding of what has from nowhere become as common a subject of study in higher education as literature or geography. In the early 1960s, this was only just starting. Few books on cinema yet existed. Access to old films was very limited. Those dismissive accounts of British cinema, past and present, had a collective force that no polemics in today's much more crowded field could hope to match. Between them, they helped to establish, as an orthodoxy within the new field of study, a negative line on British cinema. My own tentative early writings were all on American or French films. Over the years this would change, not by a sudden conversion, but British cinema history became, gradually, a rival interest, and then a major one. For this to happen, as it did for many others, two things were needed: an understanding of how and why it had become so fashionable to be so scathing, and the chance to see plenty of old British films. Seeing them was not easy. How did one find them? The range of British and other films available to us now, and the ease of access to them, would for a long time have been unimaginable. The story of change in the ways we access films is itself a central part of the history of cinema. And it is precisely this process of change that has enabled us progressively to gain a fuller, clearer view of the history of Britain's own film production, thus rendering those imperious dismissals of the 1960s ever harder to sustain. But they are themselves, in turn, an important strand in the history. Seeing old films. For a long time, films could be seen only in cinemas, and you had to catch them quickly. A few popular items, such as Chaplin's silent comedies, did get reshown in the early years, but they were rare exceptions. Already in 1918, the leading British screenwriter of the time, Elliot Stannard, was protesting against this ephemerality. We are seeking to find some solution whereby successful films may be saved from premature and needless oblivion. Those words come from the fourth in a series of 5 articles by Stannard, The Art of Kinematography, in the weekly trade paper Kinematograph and Lantern Weekly. The reference to the Magic Lantern Show, not dropped from the title until the following year, is a reminder of the sheer novelty, still, of the medium of cinema, just as the word art is eloquent of its and Stannard's aspirations. None of his own earliest films were revived, and many remained lost, but the Imperial War Museum in London, founded in March 1917, was already rescuing war footage from oblivion, laying the foundations of a pioneer film archive. Britain was thus a leader in recognising the cultural and historical significance of the young medium.